Welcome back to Worldview. Now, for the last 2 days, the United States Supreme Court has heard oral arguments about whether or not California's ban on same-sex marriage, we know it as Proposition 8, should be struck down, and a 1996 federal law, the Defense of Marriage Act, or DOMA, should be declared discriminatory against same-sex married couples and therefore unconstitutional. Now, the testimony is normally released on a Friday afternoon, but each day of testimony, Tuesday and Wednesday, was released on tape the same day as these arguments were entered. And they were eye-opening and showed how far the U.S. has come in such a short period of time and how far it still needs to go. Now, joining us on the program today via telephone from Cambridge, Massachusetts, is the Reverend Irene Monroe. Now, we normally tape our show on Monday, but the developments of the last 2 days were such that we needed to cut this special segment for airing this evening. Now, Reverend Irene Monroe is a frequent contributor to UK Progressive on LGBTQT issues, as well as helping us understand the nature of race relations in the United States. And last October, she was awarded the GLAD Spirit of Justice Award in Massachusetts, and her work on behalf of those suffering injustices of all kinds was rightly rewarded. Irene Monroe, it's my honor to welcome you to Worldview.
It's my honor, Dennis. Thank you very much for having me on your show.
It's quite a pleasure. Now, we've seen quite a couple of days here. We've seen the likelihood of Proposition 8 being sent back to the lower court, which would strike it down in California, and DOMA was dealt a seemingly near fatal blow in oral arguments. What is your take on the events of yesterday and Tuesday?
Well, sadly to say, I'm not terribly optimistic. One of the reasons, let me start with what is good. What seems to be good that came out of the DOMA discourse yesterday was when Ruth Ginsburg said and pointed out very, very succinctly that to have married couples, whether they're straight or gay, and where one group is allowed federal benefits and another, is obviously discriminatory. So that's very wonderful. Now, my disappointment will be that it really won't change the country's attitude around accepting that LGBTQ people have a right to get married. For instance, even though the polls overwhelmingly show that the attitude toward same-sex marriage has increased, what we have to look at is the actual statistics, which means only 9 states out of 41 allow same-sex marriage, and of course, including the District of Columbia. What has not changed demographically, the same groups that were against same-sex marriage, like Latinos, blacks, overwhelmingly, religious conservatives, Mormons, all of that has just not changed. So with the court, and both courts, Wednesday's discussion as well as Tuesday's discussion, saying, well, we're going to leave it to the state. It's very problematic on many levels because, first of all, I think it's just actually wrong-headed and wrong-hearted to put a person's civil rights issue on a ballot initiative. Case in point, to be quite honest and not to be snarky or sarcastic, but I pretty much think that, if we were to put, the civil rights of black people on a ballot initiative, then I don't really think I'd be able to talk to you today because I wouldn't have that freedom. So, it's that sort of stuff that just tends to bother me gravely in terms of here in the face of obvious injustice and prejudice, they take a very back seat to it. And Justice Scalia irked me the greatest, not surprisingly, when he asked Ted Olson, he is one of the attorneys for the plaintiffs on Proposition 8, when was it discriminatory to not allow gay couples to get married? And of course, that's a rhetorical question because what he's saying is that if the Constitution didn't allow gay marriage back in the day, and nothing in the wording of the Constitution has changed, he wants to know then where, to present day, does he get his footing to argue this as if the Constitution has existed in a vacuum, as if society hasn't changed over time.
Well, you mean you'd also offer the same question about heterosexual marriage. I mean, where does it say in the Constitution that heterosexual marriage is legal and protected and allowed? I mean, it's ridiculous. But you bring up a very interesting case when you talk about the discriminatory aspects of it. I mean, you said yes, you and I would not be able to have this conversation, and it was also shocking to see the Loving case revisited during the course of those arguments, which talked about interracial marriage and the fact that that even our own United States president, who had an interracial set of parents, a black father and a white mother, would not have been allowed to marry in most of the United States back when he was born. It just seems. Talk a little bit about this, how this would actually.
Well, it's interesting because one of the things that in Tuesday's discussion, and it was sort of repeated, unfortunately, in yesterday's discussion, is that they don't want to make any decision ahead of the people. So one of the arguments is that when they look at particularly Brown versus Board of Ed and certainly Roe v. Wade, they said that they made a decision was made ahead of the people, which give rise to the type of backlash that we see today. One of which, in terms of Brown versus Board of Ed, a resegregation of schools. And of course, if you were certainly in America during the 70s, 60s, 70s, and one would even say present day, again, you see these huge sort of arguments and tensions around desegregating schools, to the point now that people have just accepted it. To this day, we are still fighting. We are still fighting, unfortunately, Roe v. Wade. So the whole idea is that, well, if we don't get ahead of the people on this issue, the transition will be a lot more smoother. Wow. Now, the thing with Mildred Loving versus the Commonwealth of Virginia, well, they argue, well, we're ahead of the folks. By the time Mildred Loving comes, there were many more states that had accepted interracial marriage. These anti-miscegenation laws were struck down by state Supreme Court. So this is where they say, well, it's best to go state by state, let it be a state rule, and then they will step in. Because in many ways, I think they may even think about throwing the case out because they're saying it's too soon.
Yeah, but if they throw the first case out, the Prop 8, that means that the lower court ruling stands, and that's
right.
I think that's just as. By the way, we're still speaking here with the Reverend Irene Monroe on Worldview with Denis Campbell. That would let that statute stand. It would throw out, Proposition 8, and same-sex marriages would be allowed in 11% of the United States because California is such a huge state. But what was stunning to see was how deep this divide runs. I mean, where are the politicians who were so vocally against this? It's like someone has turned the kitchen lamp on and they've disappeared like cockroaches into the cupboards. I mean, the media, even the House GOP's attorney, the man who argued the DOMA case yesterday, walked away and would not answer press questions. What is that all about?
I know they're backpedaling, but I just want to say this about California. You're absolutely right that if they throw it out, California now, have marriage equality. But what the Prop 8 case wanted to do was not only allow the state of California to allow marriage equality, but it wanted to be a sort of landmark case in which, in allowing California, it would also allow all other states that didn't have marriage equality. It would turn over all other states. And the argument is that, we're not going to have an activist court. If any activism come about, it will come from the foot soldiers like you and me and others and stuff.
Yeah, but I mean that doesn't apply to elections or anything of that sort either. I mean, don't get me started. Now,
and the problem with this, can I just make one more comparison?
Yeah, sure.
The problem is this: when you have state by state, deciding this issue. You have something not even similar, exactly like the way it was during slavery. And what I mean by that, it was that you knew that certainly in Alabama and Mississippi, and most of the states below the Mason-Dixon line, you weren't a free black. But if you went up above it and say you went to Pennsylvania, New York, Massachusetts, quote unquote, technically you were free. And so what you have here is that you will have gay folks, and I actually did a wedding for someone who lived in Hawaii, where the whole issue of same-sex marriage began there. And if you know, then it jumped over to Vermont, and then when it came in our ballpark, which is Massachusetts, we took it and just ran with it because the timing was good. But I married a couple that flew, if you can imagine, all the way here to have a wedding, which is not the most scenic place to have a wedding, because they could be wedded here and they couldn't in Hawaii. So what you'll have is you'll have people going to states that where marriage equality is allowed, to get married. But then the question is, will their state uphold those nuptials? New York, before it became one of the states that now allow gay marriage, was one of them. But how likely if some couple coming from Louisiana or Mississippi come here to get married, and then say, it won't hold very much going back home.
Well, yeah, it's that, and there's just so many other issues here. We're going to have you back again to talk about this some more, Irene. We've really appreciate your coming on the program here. We've been speaking with the Reverend Irene Monroe, and looking very much forward to having her back to discuss this issue in more detail once we actually get a decision. Thanks for joining us, Irene.
Oh, thank you very much. Take care and happy holidays.
Thank you. Now, coming up next, we have Peter Phillips, and Peter is joining us again from the Wales Air Network. And the reason he's joining us is that if you happen to live in Wales, well, you just bought an airport. More on that in a bit. You're watching Worldview with Denis Campbell. Stay right here.